Hey everyone, this is Terms here. I am joined by MCB. He is our raid lead for the Doom Turtles runs on Nordanaar. I've been here for about a year now, year and a bit, having a great time. And I wanted to bring us together on this video to not only just review the runs that we do, but also just talk about some of the philosophy with the guild and just what it's like playing with a team where we're all focused together on achieving one goal. So, MCB, welcome to I guess it's the show. So it's nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's thanks for having me.
Right on. So we're watching the VOD from Rina. He's one of our. I guess Rina's a tank. He does a lot of our. He must be a tank. I mean, at this point, I'm always. Everyone has different roles because of a Turtle WoW. But as
That's
everyone,
right. Yeah.
yeah, everyone knows I'm a mage, so I'm always just in the back. And recently, I've been a priest. But more so, the big focus here is just talking about the experience and the run itself because there's just always so much happening and people are always asking us questions about how we work together as a team, um, and so much more. So, I mean, if you want, you can take the lead, take the floor, talk a little bit about what you're seeing. I mean, where do you?
Sure. Thanks for the introduction. I think it's very concise. I would say that when we look at Kara, it's quite a difficult raid, right? It's everyone thinks it's linear, but the problem with Kara is it's all about individual responsibility. And you guys saw right over here, maybe about 30 seconds ago, we had the entire raid silence because of a premature pull, right? The premature pull, we pulled a worker, which is an undead mob. After a while, it does silence the entire raid, which is, as you saw, I think 3 or 4 people died. Very fatal. We briefly considered restarting the instance, but then because of cooldowns, because of other concerns, we decided to just truck on. So here we are, heading on over to Normoon. And I guess turns back to your question is DT. What is it like playing with DT? I would say that DT is very focused on 2 things, in which I repeat every single raid. First of which is being the pursuit of improvement. Right, we're always trying to improve. It could be 5 seconds, could be 30 seconds. It doesn't matter. We're always trying to reflect, reassess, analyze, and then become better versions of ourselves. And the best way to do this in sports, in life, in rating, in gaming, anything, is to be persistent. So we're always also talking about discipline. Discipline meaning we stick to the plan, we keep showing up even though we don't want to sometimes, and then we never give up. It's that simple, right? You put in the time, you put in the effort, you almost always get results.
Yeah, I like that. It's a big thing because when you look at life in general, whether it's your focus on goals, which is pretty much everything in life, and career, and all these things, when it comes to working with a raid team and playing a game as well, a lot of it is teamwork. Majority of it is working together, and a lot of it is about sticking to the plan and following what you do. Which, if you think about it, when you look at these runs, everyone has a job to do, which is why there's assignments. And when you have assignments, you have to make sure you're doing something at the right time. Like we're watching here, everyone has to know to go to the right owl. People have kicking responsibilities. People have to, AoE the mobs, pick them up, and listen to the calls being made. And if that doesn't happen, then you see more chaos. You see things break apart. And that's pretty much what's going to make a difference in a team that wins and a team that does not win.
It's a good point in terms that I think the magic of 40-man raids is to be transparent. It's very difficult to manage 40 players, right? Which is why eventually we saw 25-man raids and 10-man raids. It's infinitely more difficult to have 40 individual actors working together as a team. To your point, everyone has a different responsibility, and especially in Kara, if one person forgets to do his job, there's always, or almost always, a ripple effect, which everyone else pays for. So, to put it simply, one mistake is by one person is paid for by 39 others. That's where Kara gets infinitely more difficult than, let's say, AQ, Nax. A lot more is on the line. But at the same time, if you guys follow DT and you watch our raids, we have had our fair share of failures. I would say that, terms, we raid together for, it's been a while already. We've found almost every single way to wipe. We know almost all of the mistakes that are possible within every single raid. And on the flip side, that gives us infinite experience because we're able to determine when exactly is a high risk scenario and how to play around it because we've seen it, right? We have the experience underneath our belt. And so, again, 40-man raids, very, very difficult to execute. Sometimes it looks easy, but I can assure you that in every single one of our runs, there's always been multiple different hiccups. And the hardest part about that is whenever a mistake inevitably happens, mistakes always happen. How do you deal with it? How do you power through? How do you maintain the team's motivation and drive? That's always been an ongoing challenge.
Yeah, and the thing, this is actually, it's good to talk about this too, because what you're referring to is as well like being the one in charge, like you're leading, right? Everyone here is here to listen to you, and in a way, they look up to you as well to lead the charge. And I'm sure they know that you make mistakes too. We've all experienced it, and you have too. But they're here and they're listening and they're ready to go. They're ready to focus. So it's that leading aspect that's really important too, because leadership is quite a unique skill, and only so many people have the ability to do it. And I'm sure you'd agree.
You're right. I think leadership in the game, to be honest, it's the same as leadership in real life. And in both the game and in life, in work, in sports, you're dealing with people. There's always a human nature aspect. And so as a leader, it's infinitely more difficult because every single thing you say, every action you take is to some degree judged. People look up to you, people look at you, they judge you based on what you say and how you call things. And so you're right, term. Some people might regard that as stress. They might regard that as intense pressure. For myself, I'm fine with it, but that's because of my career. But I think that when I look at the raid, when I raid Doom Turtles, I look at it in the sense that, am I making the right decisions for 39 other people? Right? Am I making the right call so that everyone else can succeed? And so, I've been asked before is, hey, why do you raid lead? Like, what do you enjoy about this aspect? It's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of weight on your shoulders. Why do you do what you do? And the answer is, I've been doing this for, how long has it been, terms?
I think
18, 20 months, right? Almost 2 years, right? Maybe a couple months, just shy of 2 years. And so the reason why I enjoy doing this is because I've seen so much growth in the team. I've seen players become parse-hungry individuals. They've evolved into absolute team players, right? These guys put team over individual parse every single day of the week. And that's such an amazing evolution to watch because, in terms notice as well, I always talk about proper rating, right? Proper rating means you have good movement, you have good execution, you have good discipline. Notice I didn't talk about damage at all. Damage, very fundamental table stakes. Everyone has damage at this level, right? Every single player in this raid is a pumper. That's easy. The hardest part is executing with your teammates and doing the right things for the team, even though sometimes it may cost you a little bit of a personal parse. That's where teamwork comes in. And I think I've seen a lot of growth throughout the last 18 months. It's actually quite amazing because, when I look at leading Doom Turtles, I think about almost every single day, I think about how can I help elevate others, right? What can I do to make others around me better? And, for those that play with us know I'm fairly strict, right? At times I'm very direct, but none of this is personal. Right? I'm here to help everyone get better. And we see this in this 36-minute run, right? This is not RNG. I never talk about RNG. I never talk about luck. It doesn't matter for us, right? Luck can be controlled to some extent. There's always a 1% chance where things go wrong. That's life. But the moment you start thinking about RNG is when you've given up. So for our runs, it's all about discipline. And I guess I'm starting to go off on a tangent, but
It's fun.
the main point is I like to see people grow. Right? I like to see people improve. Look at this execution right here, this invis skip. 40 people on the same wavelength. Everyone was able to pull off the skip. It looks easy, but you think about cooldowns, think about pots, think about timing, think about where everything else in relation to this is in terms of pats, where they're patrolling. There's a lot of things that people don't realize go into consideration or taken into consideration because all they see is the end result.
Yeah, it's taken a lot of time too to put all this together. I mean, we've had many weeks where, like with that invis skip, where it just doesn't go well. There's always,
Yep.
like we talked about. I think you talked about earlier. Like one person can make a mistake, and it stops the progression for everybody. And at the time, it could be hard. You're on a team where you're used to always being near perfect, and then you make an error, and then how do you deal with that, right? So a lot of people always feel really sorry for the mistakes, but it's just it's a learning experience, and that's all it is. Pull ego away from it, figure out what you did wrong, try better next time, think ahead, have it all together. But it's really just teamwork. And you mentioned earlier that it's not about damage; it's about how everyone works together as a unit, and
That's right.
just what they're doing on like a performance level. I think you may have spoken about it before in previous runs, how it's like it's kind of like a song and dance. Everyone's in unison, working together in flow.
It's a 40-man performance, right? And so imagine you have 40 people dancing and one person gets off beat or off rhythm. It's immediately obvious, right? So that's where the challenge is that how do you get 40 players on the same wavelength? How do you get them to all turn left at the same time? And that's, I guess the answer is there's no answer to that. It's an ongoing project. There's always refinement. There's always room to improve. It's an ongoing project, but a lot of this comes from just teamwork and communication. I talk about sports a lot in DT. And the reason why I talk about sports a lot is because any athlete, whether current or former, they're different than the average person. Not physically. Physicality is always one thing, but I'm more so talking about mental resilience and strength, right? Athletes, by definition, are able to push through when things get difficult, right? They don't crumble under pressure. They don't tilt. They are open to criticism. They don't have brittle, fragile egos, and they're good at problem solving. And so the reason why I talk about this a lot in DT is because I want to keep reiterating the importance of problem solving. Right? I mentioned before, mistakes always happen. Every single raid, every single run, there's always going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mistakes, but that's okay. It's human nature. The biggest thing is in DT, we're very good at responding to mistakes. If A happens, then we have a plan B. If B happens, we have a plan C. And all of that is built through months and months and years of experience where, as a team, we're getting better at problem solving. Here again, same thing. This is quite a difficult in this skip.
Yeah, because the shamans are doing they're doing the, what's it called? It's like
the calm elements.
It's like the mind suit for priest.
Exactly, yeah.
We used to
So
fail to skip a lot.
this is a very high risk skip because one person that misses the skip, you pull the entire pack, and that's a very dangerous debuff on the entire raid.
And again, it goes back to the flow of how everyone's moving, because everyone's moving forward, but sometimes I've noticed that people start pulling these ads and they didn't notice that everything behind was pulled if there was a mistake on that skip. And so everyone has to, gather their senses, backpedal, turn around, readjust, and get back on track with that. It's almost like unexpected test that appears. It's reaction.
I've heard comments, right, about DT where all DT does is press W and move forward. I wish it was that easy. I really wish it were that easy. Because, as you're just saying, right, terms is we move forward as a raid, but it's not just about stepping on the gas pedal and going balls to the walls, right? There's cadence and rhythm in raiding, where there's times when you can push the pedal and there's times where they ease off. And that's where it gets really difficult as a raid lead, because you have to look at the raid health, you have to look at what's in front of us, what's behind us, what are we dealing with, and that's, sometimes I get asked for a plan, like what should I call at this point? That's the hardest thing, because even though every single raid is scripted in terms of our game plan, almost every encounter is a little bit off, if that makes sense, right? I can't tell you to call ABC in that scenario, because there could be 5, 6, 7 different other scenarios that could happen. And so a lot of it is, if you look at the team right now, I see there's someone dead. Who's that?
It's Lonsel.
Lanza, yes, red paladins, low HP pool, but yeah, there's things like this happen, and so we just recover from it. And I think that's one of the biggest. That really is the biggest strength in DT, where there's a lot of flexibility, there's a lot of on-the-fly adjustments, and there's huge props to the team, because it requires not just myself to call, it requires every single one to be ready to pivot. 3, 2, 1. Did you guys give Lonsel everything? Okay, let's go. Look at all these little arcane elementals. You see that? It's four of them.
Yeah, because in this run I was actually playing mage again. We were thinking of using my VOD, but my recordings are at like 720p, so I wanted something that was a lot higher quality. And I like this perspective too. I don't really see what the tanks do ever. I've only ever seen it from a caster perspective, so. But yeah, with being mage and being back in, the flow of just pumping damage, I noticed that almost every fight you're having to use that little remains trinket and then swap back to something else. So that's been something new I've had to adapt to, because the first time doing it, I kept messing it up. I'd go into certain boss fights without the wrong trinkets on. It's all these minor technical things that you have to catch, which is why.
Well, speaking of minor, right?
Yeah.
Like, speaking of minor, just to add on to what you said about the remains trinket, even though you're using it back to back whenever you can, in our runs, there are places where you cannot use it. You're not allowed to use it.
I think, yeah, like skips, you can't use it, because you never know. It might just run off and do something, right? Like you have to.
They do.
And you learn that by having it do something crazy and cause a wipe.
Many times. So we've seen that. So it's back to that point where we've made so many mistakes as a group that every mistake hurts, right? That's just the reality of it. But the biggest difference is, how do you come back from the mistake? And so even if, as we jump down here, we've had people jump off, we've had people run to the back. In the next pack up here, we've had people die from moving. We've had the crumbling protector blow up on us. Every single way you can think of to wipe a raid, we've managed. That's a DT special.
And what's interesting is, I know a lot of us post our VODs every single run, so people most likely see all these things in combination. Like some runs, it'll be so smooth that we'll talk afterwards and say, man, that felt slow, yet it was a new record time. And then there's runs where it's incredibly, it could be off by a tiny bit, and it feels like a 3-hour run, because it's mistake after mistake, and it's the type of mistake. As we get closer, further in the run, we'll be doing some bosses where like it just, like Rupturing, we'll see it later on. Luckily in this run it didn't happen, but there was a period in time when we changed strategies where we just kept dying and wiping over and over, and it was just, it's funny but sad, because such simple things that we know we can do, we just kept making mistakes on. So,
but speaking of strategy, actually, that's also a big focus within DT, where we're always trying to think of ways to optimize every single fight, right? And that, especially in a high-paced scenario like ours, where we don't really want to risk a lockout, but at the same time, we do take calculated risks, where we do implement brand new strategies for bosses or pulls or trash, even though knowingly that it could cost us the lockout, we still try it because it's an investment, right? For example, our Rupturing strategy, when did we change it? Maybe 2 months ago?
It must
I don't
have been
remember.
around that time because we noticed there was a guild on Telebeam that had the fastest kill time, and they're only an alliance guild. So they figured something out. It's the same kind of concept. They looked at the mechanics, they practiced, and they got it working. And that's when we started looking at the mechanics as well from other guilds and people in Boston.
Absolutely. I mean, I,
I
I
got
think
here
we're
with
always trying to learn, and I would say most groups would not implement a brand new strategy if it's a speed run week. Lucky for us, in DT, every single run is a speed run, so there's no difference. And so,
I think that's the biggest difference, by the way. When you put the speed run word as a whole and the whole concept of that on the pedestal like once a month, most guilds do that usually like in classic era with world buffs because you get the Darkwind Fair, and then since it's Alliance Horde, it rotates. So you'd
you're right,
have
right.
to you'd prep for that, right? Because you get every single buff, and then people aren't used to speed running, and there's probably mistakes. And there's a
hmm
big difference with
hmm
that. So here, when we're doing it all the time, it makes the biggest difference because you're always on your A game.
Always. It's called conditioning,
Yes.
right? When you're conditioned to go at a certain pace, everything else feels slow. And if you ask anyone on the DT roster, they can all tell you the same thing: is that if you join any run outside of DT, it's ultra relaxing, very relaxing. So it's a testament to that growth within the team. But back to the strategy,
Mhm.
I think it's important to keep an open mind, right? Even though right now we have the record for the fastest Kara and the fastest Nax, it doesn't mean that we know everything. Conversely, it means that there's a lot for us to learn because even with these times, we still have a lot more potential to improve. And I think the fun of Turtle WoW, or the server in general, is that you have a team of 40 that are united in the same direction. We're all aligned with the same goals, and we're all trying to figure out ways to reach that goal. And I think that's where the magic really happens, right? The magic isn't in the gameplay, the magic is in the teamwork.
Like this.
And you
I've
tell
never
me
seen
if,
this before. Sorry to cut you off. I haven't seen this before.
I like this part, yeah.
Oh wow. This is magic. Very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, that was all Rina. Rina designed it, Rina thought about it, Rina planned it out. Like this is the initiative that we're talking about, where people, they want to contribute to the team, and he was the first guy on the server to think of this or to execute it. And so it's very difficult to replicate what he's doing without knowing every single step of the way, what he uses and why he uses it.
Yeah, like I've never actually looked at a arena VOD. I usually only watch mage VODs and also my own just to see what's going on, and I just skim through for the things I'm looking for because everyone watches VODs differently. I can imagine some people for the first time watching this who have never seen like a 36-minute Kara 40. They're like, if they're used to doing like a 2 hour or even 3 hour, which we used to do by the way in the beginning, they probably find this mind blowing. They're like, what? You can do that? You can skip like that? And it makes them like their brain explodes. And I see a lot of comments on my videos from that from over the months because it's wild. It's wild how it works. 'Cause it applies to everything. You see something really cool for the first time that you've never thought was possible, and then you see that it's possible.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So Rina actually dies and then he gets summoned. So we're not going to be seeing the run to Sam. So
We won't, yeah. That's a fairly easy run.
yeah, it's just a bunch of AoE and mob skips through the mountains.
That's right, yeah.
Oh wow, we're already there too. See, this is how fast we were. I was trying to think in my mind how far are we. So we do get to see a little bit of it.
I think that if I'm not mistaken, by the time Rina zones in, we're already at the temple. Is that correct?
Looks like we already were, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we look at the rest of the run today right now, the biggest difference or the biggest risk after Sam is always Rupturing. Very difficult, right, to execute. Took us a lot of time to perfect, and we're not even close to perfecting it. That's the biggest difference.
Yeah, I think Rupturing in itself is such a. Some might argue and say it's not a gamble, but it's really how you handle those first 4 mobs, those crumblings, because it can just throw
I agree.
you off.
I agree.
And even I tinkered being back on mage for a few times because I was thrown on. I was playing priest for 4 months. I took over when when some of our
You
priests
did,
went.
yeah.
So at first I didn't like it, but then I realized it's a lot more laid back. It's more about movement and just keeping. It's doing one single thing, which is renew. But for mage playing Rupturing again, I'm used to just. I decided to just AOE everything in the beginning, and that was different because I watched one of our other mages, D-Lam, die, and I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that. So I'm always paying attention to those things.
Rupturing is difficult in the sense that it's execution heavy. It's not so much about parse. And it's always a challenging mindset to change in the server where, as a DPS, understandably, you want to do as much damage as you can within reason. And you want to look good on the rankings. But in many cases that we've seen, 99% of the time, if you chase parse, you sacrifice execution, right? You sacrifice mechanics, and with us, if you sacrifice mechanics, the entire raid gets punished because it's high stakes.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you notice, by the way, on this fight, we've gotten so used to it now. We have one or two people sometimes die to that fire AoE there, but it's almost like that. Like we know that because we get him to 40% Sanv, and then we know afterwards he does that fire AoE. People just automatically start running out even before he finishes that phase. So this kind of ties back to the memorization and the studying and flow of the run.
The scripting, right? There's everything is
Yeah.
to some degree in a sequence, but at the same time, everything is not in sequence because of random mistakes. But here you see us quickly booking it to Rupturing. I think we're going to pull within the next, 30 seconds or so. We'll see.
Probably 30 seconds.
Even you see that Inferno on the left. We've even managed to pull that in the past as well.
Yep. Even the imps. We pulled everything.
Everything that's possible we've done, unfortunately.
And the big thing too is you'd be surprised, like our breaks between, like you get to a boss, we typically stand there for like 10 seconds and then we go. You'd think that's not enough time, but it is. You can fit everything in, so it's very quick pace.
Yeah, this run is actually one of the in recent memory, the runs where I've actually used pull timers. I think there's been a couple 10 or 15 second pull timers, and in hindsight, it was very useful because even though it's only, let's say, 10 or 15 seconds, it gives people a chance to have a mental break, right? You take a couple breaths, you refresh your buffs, and you're back in it.
And that's another thing too. You're managing, right? Like you're thinking about how long do they need realistically, and you're looking at all these different things to know, and also repetition from the previous runs. But having awareness,
You're right.
On when to do the timer, it's so key. I think here we almost. I think here there's a lot of noise on voice. You'll probably hear the audio. I'll put that in afterwards from this VOD, just so there's something there. But here,
Okay.
you start yelling stop. I can hear it. I think you can hear it too. Because that was
I recall that actually. It's
a lot of guys didn't know this mechanic where if the living stone is still up and you kill him, everyone dies. And a lot of our players didn't really understand that for so long because we're so used to just brute forcing it.
That transition is actually quite difficult. Here it looked easy, but there's a lot of small mechanics that come into play, and even if you're off by a second, it could mean a wipe. And so, just as an example, we've had in the past where if you kill a Crumbling Exile, it does an AoE explosion. And so we had someone get hit by the explosion into the air, they get launched into the air, but then they got stoned in the air. So the living stone spawned in the air, and we could not kill it. And as a result,
that was funny.
It was very odd because living stone was stuck in the air. It was bugged, and we had to kill Rupture in phase 1 and then end up dying because of the living stone. That was quite the experience.
Small bugs. It happens.
I hear we're seeing the skip.
The famous skip.
Square. Yeah.
Get to see this.
This skip was designed by our friend on Telebim.
Trovy.
That's right. Yeah, Troby gave the idea, and then all we did was execute it. It's a fantastic skip. I think it saves a good 20, not 20, 2 minutes at least. As you can see here, we're following this mob who's taking his sweet time.
Yeah, you don't like this guy. He's always taking his time.
And now we zoom by the final. This is the final stretch before the last two bosses.
And you'll see these two went really well. Like Cruel went really well because no one died. And usually when people die, you end up wasting 30, 40 seconds just having to get everybody back up and buffed. We were able to just transition at the end a lot better. And it feels a lot nicer.
Good point. A lot of people don't realize that every death is not just a resurrection. It's also rebuffs, mana, everything else. And a lot of the times when someone dies, it almost always affects their mental game as well, because it throws you off, right? There are players that after a death where they cannot recover for the entire run. That's always an ongoing challenge, and people underestimate this, because if you tilt from one death, which does happen, which is also understandable, that affects your performance for the entire run, which subsequently affects the raid DPS and the raid performance. Everything is tied into the whole, right? It's not just one person. Everything you do is linked to 39 others in this type of raid. That's the weight of the responsibility that everyone carries.
Great points. I wanted to ask you, actually, this might be helpful for others because, we've been talking about running the actual, being the raid leader, running the actual raid, making the calls, paying attention to the finer details, knowing every single player, what they can and cannot do, structuring things. Is there any advice that you have for other guild leaders, raid leaders who want to improve their team and their roster? Because I think this might help.
That's a very good question, because it comes down to the understanding of leadership, right? A leader's job is not for personal gain. A leader's job is to elevate others. And the best way to steer the ship, the 40-man ship, is by understanding, or spending time actually, first and foremost, to understand your people. You have to understand who you're working with, your resources, their respective personalities, how they respond to feedback. And this is 39 people, by the way, not just one person. Understand how they function. And once you understand your people, then it gets a lot easier in determining how you want to steer your ship, right? If you don't understand who you're working with, you will have no idea how to allocate resources in the right directions. So personally, I spend a lot of time talking to the team. Every single member within the team, I know what they're like. I understand their personalities. I understand how they respond to criticism. I understand how to train them. And to be honest, I enjoy this aspect. I enjoy connecting with people, and I enjoy helping people grow. And as you see here in this Cruel fight, it's a long time in the making, because it took us a long time to execute this type of flawless 0-death kill. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and a lot of training. People underestimate the importance of communication, right? A good GM, a good raid lead, is a very good communicator. If you cannot communicate, you cannot lead. And so, back to your question, is advice for other raid leads is spend time thinking about the big picture. What do you want to achieve? Do you want to achieve just a simple clear? Do you want to achieve a faster time? Think about that, and then think about your people as well. Always think about your people. Without your people, there's no raid. And so how do you work with people on your team? How do you understand them? How do you connect with them? That's on you to figure out.
Love that advice. Solid.
Thanks. It's worked in DT so far, so hopefully we'll keep up the rhythm.
Yep, you need a strong mindset. This is what it's about.
You do. You do. Let's see where are we at right now. Oh,
Yep.
intermission already. This is a fairly easy fight. I think people can watch our videos and understand how we've simplified this fight so much. One of the things actually when I'm raid leading, in terms of this as well, is I'm always talking about risks, right? There's always pros and cons, there's always risks. And so we always think about what is the white mechanic, what can kill our run, what can kill our raid. And the only thing within this fight that can kill our raid is shackles, as you can see right now. Shackles is 5-6 seconds of no movement. And I've seen so many times, we've all seen it many times, is people try to greed. They want that extra 1 second of uptime. And as a result, well, you get a lot of downtime in the graveyard.
It's true. I think we had a couple wipes on this last time. Not this run, obviously. The one before.
We did, yeah.
It happens. And then I think that was like a 54-minute run and felt like 3 hours.
You know, looking back, it's been quite the journey. Remember when Kara was first launched, then we did a sub 2 hour, then we did a sub 90 minutes. People thought sub 1 hour wasn't possible, and now we're at 36 minutes. Crazy, huh?
Yeah, it's been quite crazy. I'll pause the video for a sec. It has been a journey, going through here and just working together as a guild. I know a lot of people might chuckle just at how how serious this entire like video has been, but really, I look at it this way too. Most likely the same way you do, but everything you do is reflected in all actions in life. So the way you act around others is the same way you act for people here. Like it's all inner reflective of its own. The way you are at work,
It is.
It's all that stuff. And for you, you're somebody who pretty much is gifted at managing others as well. You have experience with it, so it comes second nature to you. You can do it like blindfolded, if we had to try that, and it's just possible. And you can just do it in your sleep. Is what I'm trying to say.
I don't know about blindfolded, but
Maybe not, but it's. I guess what I'm trying to say is like it's just simple enough for you. I couldn't think of a funny analogy.
You know what matters in anything you do is passion. If you have interest and you're passionate about it, you will become good at it because you're intrinsically driven and motivated to do so.
Yeah.
Right? Like no one ever put a gun to my head and said, "Look, MCB, you must raid lead Doom Turtles." And so you had asked me when I first started raid leading DT about 18, 20 months ago. And so before that, the last time I ever raid led World of Warcraft was back in 2004 when the original World of Warcraft first launched Blackwing Lair. Like that's how long ago was that 20 plus years ago?
Yeah, it was like
Since I've raid led.
It's like 2005.
Right.
Yeah, it's quite a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, I was a different person back then for sure, because that's 20 years ago. But that's, I'm not coming into this game as a seasoned veteran when it comes to raid leading. It's just something I picked up along the way because I'm passionate about the team. I'm passionate about teamwork. And so it's all about that drive. I mean, Terms, you're very good at mage. You've helped out a lot with priest as well. And a lot of the times we play this game because we're driven by something, some type of reason. I like to think that within DT, people don't think about gear very much. There's a lot more focus on just achieving records, achieving proper gameplay with the team. We win as a team, and we lose as a team. And that's what I think is very magical when it comes to a 40-man raid comp.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, it's funny too. You mentioned loot. I find looking at loot to be an annoyance because it's distracting. I like to focus on the output because it's the song and dance like we talked about earlier. And we are a team, and that's how it is. And we're always trying to improve the team too, which is why we always suggest people gear check. They try us out. We're constantly bringing people in and rotating people in the try, like in Nax and Kara 40, because you never know how you can do better with different people. That, plus people take breaks, people are on rotation. Everyone has a life. They have a career, they have different jobs, marriages, things like that. So, I mean, it's the constant evolution of running a team.
From a logistics standpoint, there's always people taking breaks and moving on, which is is natural, right? I call it natural leakage. And so, a quick plug, in Doom Turtles, we're always looking for people that want to elevate themselves, that want to raid not just for purples, but they want to raid to set records. They want to raid and become better raiders, so that in any other game they play, they have this fundamental base in terms of mental resilience, mental strength. So, as a summary, happy to talk to anyone that's interested in speedrunning. We're always open to people of any class, any spec. Ultimately, all that matters is your mindset. If you want to win, we can show you how to win and show you how to elevate yourself. And you know, people seem to think that DT, we're very elitist. On the contrary, we don't bite, right? We're here to help everyone improve. And ultimately, again, if you want to play with the best and you want to learn a little bit more about high-level rating, we're here, right? The doors are open. Come talk to any of us. Talk to Terms. Talk to myself, and we'll have a conversation.
Sounds like a plan. I love that. Is there anything else you want to share outside of that, just before we wrap this up, or are you feeling good? I think we covered.
I mean, as a final comment,
yeah, go for it.
Thanks. I mean, honestly, thank you. Thank you to everyone within DT. Thank you to all the supporters that are outside of the guild. Thank you to all the haters. Every attention we get is great for us because it keeps us driven and motivated. Ultimately, we're here to have fun. We're here to have fun as a team. We're here to win together. So we'll keep doing what we're doing. We're looking forward to the new patch, and then we'll go from there. There's always going to be evolutions, and so all you can do is keep changing. Such is life.
Yeah, let's see what the new patch brings. Let's see if it changes the way we do stuff. And that's a team. And let's keep striving on forward. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching. It's been MCB and myself, Terms, from DT. And I'm going to be posting some new content soon regarding add-ons and also just a mage review VOD because a lot of you have been asking for it so you can learn more. All righty. Thank you for watching and enjoy your day.